Um, you can do an intro if you want.
I can't do an
Well, you've
intro.
got your hands up. Come on.
Suck at doing intros. Okay, it's the what we
Well,
called
you
again?
literally just had the energy, and now it's all gone. What happened?
Just remind me what we're called, and then I'll be back.
Just call it the
Fan
FB
bollocks.
FB Premier League show.
FB Premier League show. We've got to review the second half of the game week's fixtures. We've got some points, which has become a bit of a rare thing in recent weeks for us.
Yeah, we've got a few points, and
We've
don't
got some
worry.
points, some interesting fixtures to talk about. So let's do it. First game of the weekend was big scorer. Arsenal beat Palace 5-0.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you're concerned about Matt's intro, I am paying for some therapy. He will be happy soon. Um, but he will.
Uh,
It's a slow process, so just bear with him.
Fucking well happy, mate. I'm over the moon.
Of
It
course,
just, my brain just can't express it.
you mean your mouth.
My mouth, my face, my body can't express it.
You've got permanent bitch face, not even
It's
resting.
a rare condition where like I just cannot express excitement.
Shall I just call you bitch face Matt?
You can call me whatever you like, to be fair. I mean, I'm not that much of a fan of it, but
Permanent bitch face. Anyway, instead of talking about bitch faces, let's talk about the bitches of the Premier League, Arsenal. Don't know why, but there you go. They won 5-0.
they did.
Our score predictions
Yeah.
were 2-0 and 2-1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we weren't totally wrong in that they didn't necessarily completely dominate. They weren't like the flashy kind of total football sort of Arsenal that we saw at points last season.
No, it was a few set piece goals.
Yeah, the first two were set
I
pieces.
defended pretty poorly, so it wasn't as dominant as 5-0. Rep like makes you think, but they rarely are. To be fair, big victories like that. It's usually just games where they just put all their chances away, and it was sloppy defending, set piece goals and stuff.
Yeah, it was important though for them to be able to do that. It doesn't take away from it. 5-0 win, still a great
Yeah,
win, still an
yeah,
important
good
result.
timing for them because they kind of had a bit of a dip.
Yeah, hopefully that can come back because we need to escape them.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was looking for a while like they'd be they could be in the mix for fourth place rather than the title race. But well, I mean, we'll see where they sort of trajectory of the season goes. But they could still be in the title race. They could still be in the kind of more of a fourth place
Yeah,
thing,
I
and
mean,
could finish up. But
for me, I don't think they've quite got it. I think they won't be far off
no, I think
first and
it's somewhere in
second,
between.
but I think yeah, they're kind of they're in their own. I think sort of group right now with us and Tottenham. I think they were kind of thought as in that upper group, and now after the last few weeks, it's not necessarily the results. It's more just the fashion of them and the lack of goals throughout the season compared to what you'd expect. That's just not necessarily bred as much confidence.
Yeah, they still seem to lack a little bit of mental kind of toughness, which is a bit of a
Just an
Arsenal
edge.
cliche, but that's what happened last year. Is they kind of collapsed, and seems like they're still a little bit flimsy. So
What do you think
yeah,
needs to change? What needs to come in and strengthen that mentality? Do you think like
it's a hard one. I mean,
a
they are a very
hardened,
young
a tackle
team.
hardened player?
Yeah, I think one player probably wouldn't do it. Um, I think maybe a couple more experienced players, or just time, to be honest, because they're a young team that's been
Mm.
quite a sort of settled, established group for a while. And say next season they'll have had 2 seasons together. It's quite a solid group. We're all quite young, but they'll have gone through a lot in that period, gained a lot of experience. So it might just be a time thing. A couple of experienced players would definitely help as well. But you would probably put it down to lack of experience, really.
I think if you brought Tony Cruz in and Romelu Lukaku, that sort them
Uh,
out.
Stinks a bit of Man United, those signings.
Yeah, I just think Romelu Lukaku's been through so much shit in his career. he just wouldn't care. He would just be like, I just want to score goals. I don't care what happens. I don't care what position in the league we are. I just want to score goals.
Yeah,
Not a
yeah,
joke.
yeah. And I could see him going.
And then Tony Cruz would just be like, you know what? I could do what I want. That's
Cruz
it.
would be good. I feel like they would benefit from a player like Cruz, who's just kind
Yeah.
of seen and done it all, massively experienced, good role model, even if they don't play that much,
Yeah. Just get him in the dressing room.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Because they don't. Do they have anyone who's really won anything in that squad?
Well, that's the thing. City and Liverpool have got these kind of like Liverpool always had Milner, and City have like Kyle Walker, and they've got these and like Henderson at Liverpool as well, and they've got these players who have won stuff. They've been there, they've done it. Even when they're on the kind of tail ends of their careers and they're not playing as much anymore, they're just valuable being around. But Arsenal, they don't really have anyone like that.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head.
They really don't. They've got like Gabriel is probably their most experienced player, and he is an relatively experienced player, but he's not like been there. He's not done everything. He's not won a load of things in his career.
I think Rice has brought a little bit of that into the dressing room, but obviously he's
A
still
little
a
bit.
bit young for that, and he's still not won any big trophies.
Yeah, he's got that kind of experience, that kind of like bit of grit about him because he's been through some tougher experiences at West Ham, but it's not like elite level competition. Very top of the.
Yeah, he's not. Well, he could be the guy. Like he's got the temperament, but he's not necessarily the guy who's going to be the one calming everyone down and keeping them focused in the middle of the Champions League final, sort of thing.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, like it could be, but yeah,
he could have that in him. He's certainly that sort of profile. A little bit on Crystal Palace then.
Yeah, I mean they're in a terrible run of form.
Yeah, well, they're not necessarily a terrible run of form in terms of the teams they came up against prior to this and a few of the results they'd had. But when you expand it over more of a 12 to 15 game period, they haven't won, and I think it's about 12 or 13 games they haven't won. And I remember they went through a similar thing with Vieira last year, where I think it was 11, 12 games without a win. And then that's when they decided to bring in, I forgot the old guy's name now.
Hodgson.
Roy Hodgson, that's it.
Yeah, I think it was a similar kind of time of the year. Well,
yeah. Roughly. So it's going to be interesting to see if they make that same decision again, or if they perhaps try and stick with him and hope that things return to a bit more of a more stable state.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one to call, really. I think long term they'll obviously be looking for a Hodgson replacement, and it might be, if they were more secure in the league, it might be an idea to just keep him for the rest of the season and then do your research thoroughly and give yourself a summer where you've got more time, potentially more options in terms of a good long term choice manager. But obviously, when clubs are down there with a threat of relegation, then it makes you sometimes think that an urgent change is kind of needed. I don't know. I think Hodgson probably will have enough to keep them up, but if this goes on much longer, it's going to get very dicey, and owners do tend to change the manager at that point.
I don't know. That has to work somehow in some kind of joke, some kind of way.
Yeah,
getting a bit dicey. Anyway, yeah, I think it'd be harsh for them to let him go because I think half the problems that have been caused at Crystal Palace is by the way they've run it. They've obviously run it very sustainably in terms of the financial side of it, but when it comes to signing players, I can't remember where I heard it, but I think they've only had 3 right backs since like the turn of the century, maybe. And it's been like Joel Ward, Nathaniel Clyne, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Something like that. Or most of the turn, like this century, they've only had those 3 right backs. And there just hasn't really been much investment across the squad. And when there is investment, often it gets overlooked. Like, for example, what's that player? They've got that French midfielder's name. I can't remember. It's like Ahmed something. I can't remember his name. But they brought him. They brought in this Mateus França guy who was reasonably expensive Brazilian teenager. He's barely played. So I think there's people who are frustrated with the way the clubs run and they don't perhaps spend more money, especially for a club that's been in the Premier League so long. And then there's also people frustrated at Roy Hodgson himself for underutilizing some of the good talent they've got, and perhaps even academy players as well, and just going with sort of proven talents and more senior players consistently without really giving them a shot. So I understand both sides in terms of why you'd be pissed off at each and also why those decisions would be made. So it's a tricky situation. I don't necessarily know if it all comes down to Roy Hodgson being at fault. But at the end of the day, if you can't win games, that to an extent, that's always going to have, some. It's always going to fall to the manager at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, it is a thin squad and stuff. But I mean, he did a good job last season as well. Like he stabilised them in a bit of a bad moment. But it's going to be one of those where maybe it's just opportunistic. So if a good manager becomes available, they'd probably go for him because they know that Hodgson's not the long-term choice anyway. But if not, Hodgson's probably got enough to steer them relatively comfortably away from relegation, I think.
You hope so. Yeah, especially if Forest have their 10-point deduction coming in. But we might as well talk about that game next. To be fair,
yes,
Brentford versus Forest. Unfortunately,
I liked this game. I liked this game.
Fat 3 points.
Yeah, we both went for the 3-2. I went for Brentford.
It stings, this one. That's a big 3 points gained for you.
It was a big one. Yeah, great game. Like aside from the fact that I was like in the points situation, it was just a super fun game of football. It was really end to end. Plenty of chances. Bit of a weird free kick from Tony.
Didn't quite catch it.
Yeah, so Tony came back this game, obviously, which gave it, I think, a bit of a different atmosphere. Gave Brentford definitely a confidence boost. They were kind of really up for it, you could tell. And he captained them, and he gave them a really good focal point. He's just so good, man. I paid really close attention to him this game, and God, his all-round game, physically, he's brilliant. He can hold the ball up, shrug defenders off. His technique, his first touch is really good for holding the ball up. His passing is so good. And then, he slotted a nice free kick as well. Yeah, the free kick was... the wall was really badly placed.
Yeah.
No. The wall was... It was a free kick. It was fairly central, slightly to the right. The wall was to the right-hand side of the goal, but just too central, so it left too much space around the outside, basically. But on the replays as well, Tony actually moved the ball to the right, so it gave him a better angle. And he moved the referee's line as well. Like, he scooped up a bit of foam on his finger and, moved the line around the ball, so the ref...
kind of banned, and then he comes back and he's trying to get banned straight away again.
Yeah, I know, but I liked it, to be fair. It's kind of, he got away with it. It was pretty sneaky.
Yeah, I've not heard the result of anyone speculating whether that's actually legal or not to do that. But
well, it wouldn't be allowed.
Get like half a yard.
Before you move the ball, he'd tell you to move it back. If he saw you mess with the line, he'd tell you to piss off, probably. But
yeah,
I think it's not like I don't think they're going to do anything retroactively about it.
Oh yeah, no. But I've heard that potentially it might be within the rules to move the ball to the half a yard, maybe side to side. But I think that might be bullshit, to be honest. Like the way, obviously, you mentioned there, normally when players move the ball at all, the ref's like, no. But again, normally when they do that, it's more than half a yard. So
I mean, it's one of those things as well where you can't pinpoint the exact spot where the foul was given. And so I think it kind of makes sense to give the player a little bit of leeway if they move the ball, slightly to the left, slightly to the right. I think it's not the end of the world, because in reality, where the ref has placed the ball is not going to be the exact spot either. So, so the wall was poorly placed, but also it took good technique to slot it in the corner still.
This game represents like a change in Brentford's fortunes?
Surely. I think, there's no way that you can have a player like Tony come back for you and your level's not going to improve, not that they're going to be sort of top half or anything, because I think their squad in other areas are still pretty thin with injuries and stuff. But yeah, he just gives them a complete new dimension. Like, he gives them an out ball constantly. He created so many chances. It wasn't even that he was like getting chances for himself, to be fair. I can't remember him having a great chance aside from like that free kick opportunity. But he dropped deep and was just constantly threading through balls to the sort of the fullbacks in wide areas, and he was playing up with Mope up front, and obviously Mope was a little bit. Mope did score a really nice goal, actually. Did score a nice
He has scored a couple of goals recently. He's kind of starting to prove that perhaps he's not all idiocy and bloody shithousery.
Yeah. So yeah, Tony created a lot for Mope, and yeah, there's no way that they won't improve having him on the pitch.
Yeah, you would think it breeds confidence into some of the more attacking players, knowing that if they make a run, he can find him, or if they find him in the box, he'll score the goal. Just gives them that
Absolutely.
extra boost. Like, if you think
Yeah.
normally you're counting on maybe Mbuemo to really finish off a chance or create something, and you just are sort of running at opposition defenders and you see no teammates in sight, and you just kind of lose all motivation and belief that you're actually going to be able to create anything because you haven't got the players making the right moves in order to help you out with that, then
Yeah,
I can see
absolutely.
why that quickly would drop off.
It kind of it seeped into the whole team, the confidence thing. It wasn't even just the attackers; it was the midfielders, because the midfielders knew if they were making a risky run and they got in a sticky situation, Tony's movement is really clever. He always comes deep to come close to the ball to try and get the ball, and when you pass to him, you know he's going to hold on to it. And then the defenders then feel more comfortable passing out to the midfielders, and then if they want to go long, they know that they've got more of an out ball there as well. Yeah, Brentford just looked much more confident just playing their game, really. And yeah, Tony was definitely a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, Forest were quite good as well, to be fair. I mean, they got a couple of goals. They scored really, really early on. They did have a period, I think, when Brentford were, or even maybe when it was 2, or I think when Brentford had gone 3-2 up, they did struggle to kind of control the game in the last 10 or so minutes. Forest did have a good spell where they potentially could have scored.
Without Tony, not on like a mathematical basis of he scored this many and created this many goals, but do you think had they gone into this game without Tony, you would have had the same result?
Probably not, honestly. I mean, it was a close game. Brentford just edged it. You look at the stats as well. It was more or less 50-50 possession. Forest actually had more shots, but Brentford had more on target. So yeah, it was actually a really even game. Without Tony on the pitch, I think you would have had to probably gone Forest. I mean, Chris Wood had quite a good game. It was one of them where it kind of was the two standout players on each team were Chris Wood and Tony, and it was kind of like a battle of the number 9 and battle of the forwards. But if Brentford didn't have that player up there, I can't see them putting out the same performance. So,
well, do you know what? I didn't even clock the result of the next match that we're going to talk about in Sheffield United West Ham.
Oh mate,
for some reason I didn't even look at that. I didn't even realise what had happened. This looks mental.
Yeah, well. So we had the Burnley Luton game last week, earlier in this same game week, where I just lost out on the correct result with a very late goal.
You did the same here, yeah.
I went 2-1 West Ham. I had 2 points in the bag there until the 100th minute of the game.
I'm so glad, because you would have all but have caught up with me, wouldn't you, if you'd got that?
So I gained 3 points on you in total this week. So I would have.
That would have been another 2.
It would have been another 2. So I would have been. Yeah. There's currently 7 points between us, so I would have got myself within 5.
Shit. Right. Okay. Well, let's keep that gap extended, please.
Yeah, but it was a crazy game.
Yeah, they did take more possession. Kind of, we thought West Ham might turn up and just play their normal game regardless of the opposition. And if they did that, given the lack of quality that Sheffield United have, it might have been West Ham's game. But Sheffield United kind of showed up. They really made use of the ball when they had it and created, what was it, 21 shots, 6 on target, 2.5 xG. That's got to be pretty high for it's probably the most they've created in any game this season, you'd imagine.
Well, you think so? Yeah. I mean, most of the season they've been struggling to create anything at all. So yeah, I only watched the highlights, but it seemed like from the highlights you could tell that they were kind of on top, and West Ham were just kind of clutching at straws and getting chances where they could find them on the counter attack. I think West Ham scored a penalty, did they?
Yeah. Wait. No, sorry.
2-1.
Sheffield United, and yeah, they both did actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, not a great result or performance by West Ham, but yeah. God, yeah. I mean, it would have been, looking at those stats, it would have been lucky for West Ham to get the win, to be fair.
It doesn't bode well for our visit to Bramall Lane either. I mean,
no, we're going there next weekend, 2 weeks' time, or something.
Yeah, it's the one after Newcastle, I think. It's gonna be...
Yeah, I mean, they've clearly got a bit more about them currently than they did, a month or two ago. At the same time, if they play like that against us when we go there, I think we're going to batter them, because we don't struggle in those kind of situations. We'll struggle if they defend their box really well. That's the situation I see us struggling in.
Unless Morgan Rogers slides in.
Well, that's what we're fighting for.
And to be fair, we'll have Kamara in that game. We didn't have Kamara before. We only had Dendoncker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you'd still expect us to win the game, but they've clearly got some threat now, which you probably wouldn't have said a month or two ago.
Yeah. For the table, I mean, it doesn't really do much for the table, does it? I mean, West Ham, they don't really gain too many points on sort of Champions League pack.
Yeah, it kind of solidifies West Ham's place in that 6th to kind of 10th, kind of.
Yeah, they probably will, you'd imagine. In terms of Sheffield United, at least that keeps them in a position where if they do win the next game, they do go above Burnley rather than being behind them still on goal difference. So there's always a silver lining.
Yeah, they are at the point where they're needing wins, though, aren't they? Because they're getting cut adrift a bit now.
Yeah, well, it's only 3. If you get 2 or 3 wins, anyone out that bottom 3 gets 2 or 3 wins, and they're likely out of the relegation zone.
Yeah, true. That is what it takes. Yeah.
Because while they are clearly a defined bottom 3 that's been there pretty much the entire season, points wise, it's not it's not going to require a miracle for them to actually get out of the relegation zone as things stand.
Yeah, true. So did Cameron Archer play this game? He didn't start.
Did he not? Well, I mean, they didn't have Brereton Diaz on the pitch.
Diaz scored, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was left winger. They had Osula, this Danish striker up front, because I believe he scored a hat trick in the cup. I think that's what.
Okay.
Oh no, he scored 2 in the cup against Gillingham, and I think that earned him the chance to start, basically.
Fair enough.
But yeah, didn't really do too. Did he get an assist? Maybe I think he might have got an assist.
I don't know. McBurney got the penalty. I'm starting to just dislike Sheffield United. They cost me 2 points. They're not playing Cameron Archer. McBurney's just a dick, to be honest. Like, he's just a thug. Did you see that penalty decision as well? It was another kind of dodgy one.
No. Well, I want to see. Why do you think McBurney's a thug?
Because every time he goes out on the pitch, he just throws horrible tackles, elbows people in the face every time he jumps for the ball. He's just one of them where he's just kind of obviously out to just hurt people. And then I was reading on his Wikipedia, and like he's been charged for assaulting a fan before in the stands, like stamping on someone. He's just a bit of a knob. And this game, the penalty was kind of controversial. It was a cross came in. McBurney and Areola went up for it. Neither of them got the ball. They kind of collided into each other. McBurney threw his elbow out at Areola, but Areola was going for the punch, missed the punch, collided with McBurney, and McBurney won the penalty off it, which is harsh in my opinion because they're both going for the ball and neither of them get it. So it's kind of just a clash where neither of them has fouled either, really, except McBurney did throw his elbow a little bit. But I think basically it was two players colliding. Neither of them got the ball, so there's no foul.
You'd think if they're not going to give the foul that Luton didn't have awarded against James Trafford, then in that situation they would try and be more consistent and not give a penalty for it. On the
yeah, exactly. There's precedent for it just last week, but I mean that's typical, isn't it? Lack of consistency, really.
Yeah.
For United, man, piss me off.
The politics of football. What a load of horseshit. There's no politics in football. What a joke.
I mean, there definitely is.
Anyway, Liverpool. They don't do politics. They just score goals, apparently.
No, my dream didn't come through.
Yeah, I mean, you dreamt of a 4, but
I did.
The wrong 4.
The wrong 4.
The wrong 4.
Yeah,
an unusual game for Liverpool, considering they didn't really dominate, and it was quite even compared to what you would have thought. Perhaps that is to do with losing Szoboszlai and Mo Salah. Who else are they missing? They're missing one more, Trent as well.
Trent and Robertson is obviously long term, but yeah.
But yeah, in terms of players that have just come out of the team, those 3 are pretty influential, especially on that right hand side. I mean, looking at the lineup, who did they actually play? Diaz, Elliott, and Bradley. So yeah, they've got a youngster in there. Elliott, who's obviously really, really talented, but doesn't get the game time, and Diaz not in his natural position. So perhaps, that first half they were still getting to grips. I don't know if they moved things around or changed things a bit for the second half, but whatever they did, they just exploded, didn't they? I mean,
yeah, I had hope at half time. I checked my phone at half time, 0-0. I'm thinking, okay, maybe Bournemouth can sneak a result. 4-2 was looking unlikely at that point, but maybe a Bournemouth win is on the cards. But yeah, Liverpool just kind of turned it on.
Yeah, I mean, they scored quite difficult chances, didn't they? They weren't necessarily tearing Bournemouth apart. They were clinical.
Yeah, it was just a case of they kind of upped the intensity and the quality of their players kind of just shone through a bit, really. Like you say, it wasn't they weren't great chances. Jota is just a really clinical finisher. And Darwin Nunez found the net, which doesn't always happen. Yeah. But he had a good game, so
It kind of speaks to what we were talking about before, where we sort of said Liverpool are just the kings of just getting it over the line at the moment. It's not necessarily... Do they completely dominate? Do they look defensively solid? Do they look like league winners? They just get league winners' results. However it sort of comes about. If they have to create 7 XG, they do it. If they have to create 1 and score 4, they do it. Like, it's just... They just get it over the line. I think it's just a testament to Jurgen Klopp's man management as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was thinking, watching the highlights, I was thinking there's a clear difference. You know, the reason why we, Villa, were never properly in the title race, when we were talking about it, was always, you know, we could be, but I don't think we really are, is because we played Bournemouth away. And we kind of were on top in the game, but we looked a bit vulnerable at the back, and we just couldn't really take it up a level. We couldn't change it up enough mid-game to kind of get the result, eke it out whatever way. Whereas Liverpool, they're, you know, struggling at half time away, and they've just got they've got something about them that, you know, even if they're having a really tough fixture, they can just turn it on, do something different. And yeah, there's clearly, they're in a bit of a different bracket to the kind of Villa, Tottenham's this season. They've definitely got something about them that it's letting them get results when they really need them, when they're not playing so well. Strong result from them, especially considering it's 0-0 at half time. And Bournemouth are a good team at the moment. Like, nobody really wants to play Bournemouth at the minute.
Yeah, well, perhaps people will now, but I don't know.
Maybe. I mean,
Liverpool did. You've got to be nearly perfect on at least when shooting, taking your chances. So yeah, it's going to be hard for anyone to do that really. I don't. Do you? I don't know what I think about this in terms of because like we spoke, I think before Christmas and New Year's, and we saw can Liverpool do it? I think they can. Sorry, Jesus. But then, kind of, I think we sort of post Christmas did our official like mid-season predictions, and I was kind of like erring on the side of City, and I think you said Liverpool, and then by the time you said Liverpool, I went right, fine. I'm definitely City then, just to be fair, just to challenge you. Do you still see it the same way? I think it's kind of probably must strengthen your opinion.
What in terms of Liverpool for the title chances?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to choose one, if you were to bet on one, I think City's probably still the sensible choice. Um, but yeah, games like this do kind of suggest that Liverpool have got it in them. Um, it's just the thing. The thing with Liverpool, like we have said all season, is that sometimes they look like there could be vulnerabilities there. They've always managed to kind of get it together, which in some ways is a good sign. It's a sign that they're a really
I think
strong
it's
team.
a stronger sign than the sign of potential vulnerabilities.
Yeah, but the thing that worries me about it is that in the games against City, like if it's going to be a close title race, which looks like it is, if it's going to be two really strong teams and quite high point scoring, which it looks like it probably is, it will come down to the fine margins of those games where Liverpool play Man City. And I think I'd still back City in that game.
Well, the next
Um,
one's going to be at Anfield, right? They played the City fixture and it was 1-1. Yeah.
oh shit! Okay.
So they
Yeah, that's interesting because I think the way they're playing, the way they're getting these results, you're thinking Liverpool just don't look like they're going to be losing games and dropping points at the minute. The way they're playing now. Um,
I mean, we've got more fixtures to come while Salah's out, while Trent's still out, while Szoboszlai is still out. So maybe it's not going to be the same every game. Perhaps I mean, who have they actually played since they lost those guys? It's just been two games, right? It's been
yeah, true. It's
Bournemouth
been well.
and who was before that? Bournemouth and Newcastle, I think, are the only two sides. I mean, no, Mo Salah played against Newcastle, so this is the only game
Yeah,
where they've been without. Great
true.
first game, but in terms of at least the underlying numbers and how the two teams played, they did look perhaps less dominant and more vulnerable and got by through, of course, as we've said, just their overriding quality against their opposition. If you look at their next fixtures coming up, what have we got? We've got
Yeah, they've got Arsenal away soon. Hard
yeah,
game.
Arsenal away, Chelsea
Even
at
Brentford
home,
away
Liverpool at home.
suddenly could be quite difficult.
Yeah, so
Um,
I think they've got a couple of really big tests coming up to prove whether they are actually at this level without Salah, without Trent, without Szoboszlai,
yeah, that's it. It's going to be
or
those
was
those
it
tests coming up.
was it more of a let's prove what we can do without Salah kind of game that perhaps isn't going to carry over too long when they come up against a tougher challenge.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to predict, really. It's hard to predict because they're still in the EFL Cup, they're still in the FA Cup, they're still in the Europa League as well.
Shit, they
So
need more. They need more depth.
yeah, they're already struggling with players a little bit. So that could become even more of a factor. But then like you said, they've got it about them this year where they kind of just look like they can get a result in any game. You look at those fixtures and you think, okay, Arsenal away is difficult. Maybe Brentford away it could be a tricky game. They've got to play Man City, albeit at home. But even then, the way they're currently playing with the mentality they seem to have, you probably back them in those games. Really, if you had to choose, if you had to kind of pick a winner in those games, you'd probably still go Liverpool at the moment. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
I
Tough.
mean, yeah,
Um,
it's interesting. I just think with the players that City have, especially with De Bruyne back, I think they're going to look. like a serious outfit in a couple of weeks' time.
That's the thing. City, with those players coming back, they're going to be like a machine. They're going to be well oiled. They're going to be going through the motions. They've done it all before. They do it every year. Liverpool is kind of working at the moment, but it's very hodgepodge. It's like they've just got random players and random positions. They're making it work, but it's not really smooth operation.
I'm going to make a claim here. I think
Oh
City
God.
would be more likely to win the title, right, if Haaland were to spend the majority of the rest of the season as an impact sub.
Okie dokie.
Just to put a spicy opinion out there. My
What do I think
thinking
about that?
behind that is, recently he's looked, obviously, he's been injured, but in more recent games and recent weeks, he has looked like he's, I don't know, teams are finding out how to stop him a bit easier. Like, if you get the right defender on him and you force him into the right areas, and you defend your box well, it really does limit him. And I think as well, with their play style, it's very much centered around getting the ball to him in the box. So he does score a lot of goals, but he scores most of their goals, if you know what I mean, when they play like that. And I
Yeah.
think with De Bruyne back, if you can keep the game open, like the way they played away against Newcastle, in if you just look at the amount of chances they created and the quality of some of those chances and the skill and ability on show, it's probably the best they've looked this season that I can remember. I know they got like 6-1 against Bournemouth, but just in terms of the level of opposition they were against and how fluid they were and how free everything was, it just looked so dangerous. I just don't know if they perform that way with Haaland in the side. That's the only reason I say it. And with Liverpool performing the way they are, they need to be at the top of their game. So that's the only reason I say that. It's to be honest, I'll probably look back at that in 2 weeks and change
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see the logic. I just think, I don't know. I think Haaland's quite an established part of that team now, and when he is on form, he does score so many goals. It's kind of hard for me to agree that they'd be better if he was only getting 10 to 20 minutes at the end of the game, whatever. But I do see the logic. Like, I think, we don't know how, is he even back from injury yet? Don't even know.
I think he should be for the next game, if not very soon.
Yeah, you'd think he would be, but we don't know.
Quick look.
And yeah, with the way they played against City, I wouldn't say he necessarily comes straight back into the team. And as long as they keep playing well, I don't think there's any reason to put him immediately back in the team, because he does fundamentally kind of change the way they play a little bit. And if they're playing well with him out, then there's no reason to rush him back in.
Yeah,
but
Pep is the kind of guy to leave someone out if he finds a way of playing and it's going well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
who he has to leave out to do that.
Yeah. So if they're playing well, I don't see him rushing back in. But if he comes off the bench a couple of times and performs well and gets a couple of goals, I think he goes in the starting lineup. And then if he finds a run of form, he's the kind of guy who scores a goal a game or more. So
do you know what I'm thinking? We can have De Bruyne, Alvarez, and Bernardo Silva rotating into a false nine position, all playing in sort of creative midfield sort of areas. Wing. Probably can't have all.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit what because they've been playing Alvarez up front, but when you watch him play, he's not comfortable as an actual striker. He's always floating around, he's coming really deep. Sometimes it's quite annoying because you've got him in your fantasy team and you want him to get goals, obviously. But also it's kind of like sometimes he just completely vacates the box and there's literally no one in there, and they spend all this time building up to get the wide player in an overlap and you get space, and then Alvarez is just like at the halfway line. So fuck's sake.
Just interchanges between like Foden and Bernardo Silva and Alvarez when they're inside the 18-yard box. Just look like you don't see.
Oh yeah, I mean they're all just so technically brilliant. It's just insane. Yeah.
If you can imagine like a Rodri sat behind a midfield of like De Bruyne, Silva, and then a front three of either Doku, Grealish, and then Alvarez and Foden, it just.
Yeah, well, to be fair, like that could be why Foden's been playing so well, is because Alvarez has been playing that false nine. He kind of vacates that space, but Foden is the kind of guy who quite likes getting in behind and making a kind of dynamic run. And then if you've got Alvarez, Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne finding that run from Foden, it's dangerous. Yeah, no, I'd like to see it. I mean, Pep loves the false nine role, doesn't he? He loves
He does.
he loves a little guy in there. I mean, De Bruyne's done it before at City. Yeah, it'll be interesting how they approach this kind of next part of the season, because with De Bruyne back and Haaland potentially not at full fitness yet, they might have to change it up. It'll be interesting to see what they do and how it works out.
Yeah. Let's end on a bit of a dull game then.
Oh no!
We can end this on.
Someone's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, Brighton Wolves. I mean, I think I got the point here, right? I went for a draw.
You did. You went 2-2. Yeah. I went for Brighton 4-2.
I think we both expected a goal-scoring game.
Where it could have been. I started watching the game, and it really could have been. It was really end-to-end early on. Wolves were looking so dangerous to Neto, like he was just playing amazingly. Brighton were dominant in possession as you'd expect, but they were getting in good positions because Wolves were trying to counter as well. So the Wolves weren't, sitting in their box by any means. And it was really end-to-end for a bit, but the final third was just shocking from both teams. Like Neto was creating great chances, Cunha was just skying it. Brighton were getting in the final third.
Striker then, Cunha?
He was playing central. Or, I mean, they played Sarabia, Neto and Cunha, and Neto kind of drifted in the channels. Sarabia was playing sort of central / in the channels, and then Cunha, they were kind of like drifting about. They were kind of moving about.
Cunha have to with players like that, unless you've got a dedicated number 9, which they don't have at the moment. Then you kind of have to.
Yeah, it was kind of working well in terms of creating the chances. It was just like, I think they would have benefited from someone a bit more of a striker than Cunha, because he just wasn't quite sort of clinical enough. And Neto was like, he'd play it to the back post and Cunha would come to the front post, and Neto would play it right in the 6-yard box and Cunha would be dropping deep, and they just weren't on the same wavelength.
That comes with time then, doesn't it? Right.
And it was the same with Brighton at the other end. They were getting in good positions and they were building up really well, but it seemed like with their injuries, I think those players had just never played before together. It seemed like they didn't even know who each other were. They were just, the passing was just off in the last moment, and it was frustrating because it was end to end. Both teams were playing well in one way, but then playing really awfully in another. And it ended up it petered out. Like, it was really exciting for a bit, and then it kind of I think that both teams realised that their attacking was just awful and it was disheartening, and they just kind of gave up on it towards the end. It's a bit of a frustrating one. It could have been a high-scoring game on another day if both teams maybe had their kind of full lineups out and stuff. It could have been a high-scoring game, but it just wasn't, unfortunately.
Yeah, if you imagine that front line of Neto, Cunha, and Hwang, does sound pretty tasty, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then if Brighton had Mitoma, because Pedro was kind of playing left wing where you don't want him. They were playing Welbeck up front through the middle, who just didn't have a particular good game. Welbeck, yeah, I did say Welbeck.
You got your Welbecks from the Fortnite store.
I knew Welbeck. So it's just if Brighton had Milner was playing in midfield and he was just a bit ineffective. It was just disappointing. I was like, if Mitoma was there, it would have been great. Because Estupinian was really limited by Milner's role, I think, as well. I'm not sure exactly what kind of system they were playing, but I think it seemed like Estupinian was dropping either into midfield in a kind of inverted fullback, or he was a third centre-back when they were building up, because he was just never there on the left wing. I kept expecting to see him bomb down the left wing, and he just never appeared.
Yeah, that is his best kind of asset, isn't it, really, as a left?
Yeah, he was just kind of limited by the system, and it was a bit frustrating, but I don't really know what more to say about it. It was just annoying that there weren't more goals. We both went for loads of goals in this game. Just didn't happen.
Yeah, unfortunately. But
Wolves are at a good level, to be fair. Though, last season you probably would have said Brighton heavy favourites. Brighton are sort of stuttering a little bit just because of injuries and stuff. Really, they're still kind of doing their Brighton thing. They're playing their way. They're just lacking the players to kind of pull it all together at the moment.
Yeah.
They're still 7th.
It was weeks ago that we kind of said, if this continues, we kind of have to view Brighton as perhaps having taken a step back this year rather than the step forward we all kind of hoped or thought they would make. Um, and I think at this point you kind of have to say it's true, but I think teams in and around them have also taken a step back, which is why it's perhaps not reflected in the table as much.
Yeah, I think you would say a step back from that period where towards the end of the season where De Zerbi came in and it all kind of came together for them. They made a push for the Europa League. At that point, people's expectations were really high for the next season.
Mm.
So I think it's probably a step back from that because that was an especially exciting period. But in terms of their performance over the season, they're still kind of on course to finish roughly in the same place. So
Yeah, I think the points
they've
tally would be a bit less though, wouldn't it? 'Cause
it probably I don't know, but you'd imagine so because
they finished on I think 63 or 64 points last year. So yeah, currently 21 games in, so a little bit over halfway, and they're on 32. So yeah, they're on course to finish probably on a slightly lower points tally.
yeah,
But yeah, so it does represent a little bit of a decline.
a little bit.
But yeah, as you say, it
But
could be to do with injuries.
yeah, they are struggling with that bit. And it wasn't especially kind of exciting. They had momentum in that period last season, so you can't really expect teams to maintain momentum forever. There's always lulls and stuff. But yeah, it's harsh to say I suppose they maybe have dropped off a little bit in their level, but they're still kind of, even when they get a bad result, because they're so consistent in their kind of play style and stuff, they always seem to bounce back relatively quickly. They've not really had a really long period of poor results this season. So they're still having a very solid season, but Wolves only 3 points behind them, which is really impressive. Like they're just such a solid team, and Neto's so dangerous. Like I'm scared of playing Wolves again. Honestly, just because Neto is so good.
Yeah, I think it must be quite exciting to be a fan of one of the teams in that kind of seventh to 12th sort of range, because this year so many of them look like they have the quality to be so much higher up the table, but they're so inconsistent. So there's some games where you get to watch your team completely dominate and play at times maybe world class football, and then other games where it's just really frustrating and they draw or perhaps lose really heavily, and it's like an emotional roller coaster. So it makes the big wins that much better sometimes.
Yeah, definitely,
It doesn't
and
feel
like
like
it's always
playoffs.
competitive as well as a fan when you've got European places in sight as a fan. It makes every game much more high stakes and just much more exciting. And I mean, Wolves are well in it. Like they back themselves against Chelsea, Newcastle at the moment. The way those teams are playing, and they're only a few points behind them. So
Yeah, I feel
yeah,
like with us
exciting.
though, some of that excitement is lost a bit in the fact that we've kind of set this really high standard, and now every game is like, oh, we have to win, we have to get a result, otherwise we're going to drop, and we're not going to get this kind of almost unachievable, unattainable goal that we all of a sudden look like we could do. So it kind of takes a little bit of the
It
excitement
has a bit,
away.
yeah. It's more nervous really because we're looking down below us rather than up ahead of us. We're not chasing. We're kind of worried about losing what we've already got at this point. Um,
Yeah,
but I mean, by the end of oh god, I don't even want to think about the last few games. If there's like a few points in it between fourth place and stuff, that's going to be scary.
just pay for your funeral the day before, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, oh god, it's just annoying that we don't know about the fifth place thing as well. I feel so comfortable right now about fifth place. Honestly, like I can't see us dropping, to below sort of West Ham in sixth. We've got 8 points on sixth place currently. We look a fair bit better than those teams fighting for sixth. I'd feel so comfortable about Champions League places if we knew fifth was Champions League place, but because it's still uncertain, I'm not very confident of finishing above Tottenham because Tottenham looks so good and they're so close to us. But yeah, the fact we don't know about the fifth place is just making is what's making it really nervy at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think especially it will come down to how it's like we've got a week left of this window. We still have some recruitment to do. We do still need a backup forward potentially. and we definitely now need another midfielder if we're letting Dendoncker go out to Napoli.
It's an interesting one, Dendoncker.
Yeah.
I think I'm happy. No one's that surprised that he's leaving because he's never been a big part of the team under Emery, and he has.
The timing is interesting.
Yeah, the timing is the weird thing. I think if it had happened right at the start of the window, you would have thought, okay, fine. But it seemed like he played it recently in a few games. You know, like played against Man United and stuff.
Although we did kind of say, especially Dendoncker against United, did kind of look like the sort of root to the problems. Not that he caused the defeat or he was in any way directly responsible, but in terms of us not being able to impose our usual game on the other side, he did look like the sort of odd one out in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was the problem area, was not having Kamara in there, for sure. But yeah, he'd had a few appearances, and it was clear that he was useful as an option when we had an injury or a suspension or whatever. And so I had kind of assumed that he would just stick around and be there when we needed him, even if it's only to play 1 or 2 or 3 games. So yeah, the timing is interesting. Does beg the question whether we'll get someone else in that position or whether we use a Robinham.
I think we'll use Robinham more because I think he does suit the system. He does have the skill set to succeed. And yeah, if we're getting 10 million as it's suggested for this Dendoncker deal, that's not too big a loss on his initial transfer fee. And
it's okay.
You know, we could potentially loan someone in that we might sign in the summer, or just loan someone in at least for the second half of the year. That is, I mean, Ceballos. Could we loan Ceballos? Do you think?
I'd love to.
Yeah, I know. I saw your smile when I said it. I was like, yeah, that was kind of
I'd love to.
dream signing for the window.
I mean,
something along those lines. That would be.
Loan deals have become sort of more common, I feel, with regulations clamping down on teams and stuff. Loan deal would be great. Like, makes it more affordable, and then you can, shell out the majority of the money with a buy option in summer, kind of thing. I don't know. I just feel like if Ceballos was a priority, we would have done it already. Ceballos doesn't feel like the kind of transfer you do after you've already lost Dendoncker. It feels like a transfer you get sorted for the very start of January because that's a priority player, a big signing.
Well, I mean, maybe not specifically him, but just a player of that caliber or close to that caliber that's perhaps not in favour at whatever team they're at.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
which could come in and do a better job.
Doesn't even need to be caliber for me. If it's going to be a Dendoncker replacement depth option, doesn't even need to be a kind of caliber player, and just needs to be a player who's more suited to the role. Because the thing with Dendoncker is that he was useful, but properly kind of suited to that role. And you can get someone in cheap on loan, whatever, who doesn't even need to be high profile, just someone who fits the role a little bit better, really.
Yeah, well, I think that's what I mean more by like higher caliber in terms of on the ball ability. As an all-round footballer, is able to
just fit in better.
Unai's instructions a little bit better, be a bit more intelligent in terms of spatial awareness and building up play. So I guess same thing. But regardless, we've reviewed our fixtures, and I think we can call this another under-hour episode.
You're good at this.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been lucky that we've had this week sort of split in half. So
that is the only reason.
Also, what's the points totals for the total of game week 21? We both get 0. No, you got 2, I got 0, didn't we?
So yeah, first half I got 2, you got 0. Second half I got 4, you got 3. So it was 6-4 total and 70-77 overall.
6-4.
So
what do you mean?
Well, I got 6 points. You got?
I got 3.
No, you got 3. Sorry.
See, look how honest I am. You can't.
I know. I do this every week. Like, I get some kind of really basic maths wrong every single week.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's still 70-77 total. I did do that right previously.
Okay. All right. So I got 7 points. All right. I'll take that. You can't make that up in a week unless you have an absolute blinder of a week, and I have an absolute stinker.
No, that was yeah. You still got a week's buffer, I'd say. But then this week was close. Like the Sheffield United West Ham game. I was minutes away from 2 points there, and I was also minutes away from 2 points in Burnley Luton. So like could have been very very close. But yeah, I think yeah, you've definitely still got a week's buffer for sure.
All right, I need to get my old head back on. I don't know how I was doing it before, but
You had a dip in form for sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe it's just all the job hunting and everything. It's been getting in the way,
yeah, sure.
perhaps. That
Whatever.
might be what it is. Yeah, definitely. Anyway, um, we'll end it there. My dinner's ready. I hope yours is too. And if you enjoyed this, drop a comment, like it, and subscribe because we bring out videos every week, and we're probably mediocre at it, but you might find us entertaining.
We're fucking entertaining.
Yeah, we don't talk about these stupid opinions that people have to get views, and we don't go, "Oh, who who'd you back for the title?" and then say bloody, I don't know, Sheffield United. We're just honest, and we give our input, and we're
But then
entertaining.
you did say that City would be better without Haaland for the rest of
Yeah,
the season.
I did say
Yeah.
that. That's half. There was some merit in that was more tactical. But anyway, I'm rambling now. That's it. You know what to do, and we'll see you again next week or later this week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.